Hi, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Circling the Rabbit Hole podcast with me, Dr. Claire Kinuthia. This, as you have become accustomed to, is a safe space to have very tough conversations on topics we consider taboo or very highly stigmatized, to the point where we're just not having those conversations. And I feel like this one specifically it's going to be an enlightening one, because I'm very sure, just from the sample sizes we've had, trying to see if people are aware of this topic. Yeah, please buckle up. This one is going to be a good one. September is Teen Cancer Awareness Month.
Childhood
cancer.
Childhood
Cancer Awareness Month. And like I said, not enough people are aware that children even have this as a challenge. And for the most part, those who are aware, it's because somebody they love or someone who's dear to them has had to go through treatments, or they've lost someone who had childhood or early cancer. And so I think it's one of those topics we should be having as an open, honest, enlightening, teaching moment. And that's why my guests on set today are here. And I feel like, maybe don't tell the rest, but I have my most special guest yet on set with me. And as is tradition on this podcast, I will ask my guests to introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and Daktari over there, a little bit about yourself as well and what you do.
Okay. My name is Laureen Neema. I'm 16. I'm in Form 3. I am in the Kenya High School.
I love
My
that.
hobbies.
Big Kenya High School. I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah. My hobbies. I love painting. I love art. I also play guitar.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice. Okay.
Yeah, and I read a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Brainiacs.
Yeah.
Okay. And for you, Daktari?
My name is Rose Munge. I am a pediatrician. I'm also a pediatric hematologist and oncologist.
Yeah, Sasa in English. Let us remove the Latin.
Let's remove the Latin. I treat children with blood disorders and cancers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And as we go way back,
We do.
how far back do we go?
Do we want to go?
First year med school.
First year of medical school, all
the way through.
Yeah.
So the first thing about the conversation we're going to have that sort of makes me feel, what's the word, emotional, is the fact that it now takes teamwork in the different specialties to be able to take care of the population we're about to discuss.
Yes.
Because, like we said, not enough people know. And then because of that, and especially so for teenagers, they fall in between. Are they kids? Are they not?
Yeah.
But they're not adults. So where do they fall? And so who is the specialist who's supposed to be looking after them? Who is the person they're supposed to go to first? So I think there's going to be a lot of questions from the audience, but let's not jump the gun. I'll come back to you, Laureen.
Okay.
I'd like for you to share what you're comfortable sharing in terms of your journey so far, from when you first received your diagnosis, what your diagnosis was, and then we can pick up from there in terms of the journey.
Okay. Well, it all started in November, I think mid-November, during the holiday. It was actually
November last year.
Yeah, last year. It was actually my aunt who noticed, because my stomach started getting swollen, and she thought it was like gaining weight or like eating or bloating, but she was like, no, this isn't normal, let's go to the hospital. So we did. They did a bunch of scans. I think the first scan I did was an ultrasound, and the technician thought I had the mass was in my liver. So the first diagnosis I got was it was a problem with my liver. That's what they were going to treat. But then I went to a gastrointestinal
Enterologist.
That is yeah. And he looked at my eyes, they went yellow, and he was like, this can't be a liver problem. So he ordered a bunch of other tests, an MRI, a CT scan. and they found it's just a mass that was sitting in my abdomen and pushing all my organs away.
Out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that point, there was no pain. I was comfortable. It's just the swelling. But then after a while, there was so much pain, like to the point I couldn't stand up straight. Yeah, and he recommended a pediatric surgeon in Gertrude's. So we went to see him, Dr. Lasan. We went to see him. He asked for another CT. We got admitted because he said that it's very urgent. At that point, we weren't taking it as a really serious matter. Yeah, so we got admitted. I went to surgery on the 5th of December last year. They removed the mass and I was okay. I went home, spent the rest of the holiday fine, Christmas, everything. So in January, because they still didn't know what the mass was after they removed it. So they sent it to the lab.
Yeah.
So in January is when they called us back because the results were out. That's when I met Dr. Rose.
Okay.
Then she told us it was a tumor. And the stage it had reached, I needed to get chemotherapy so that it doesn't spread or in case there was anything left.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I started chemo in January for 6 cycles to May. Yeah, I finished in May.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was it like when you first had the big C word? Because when people hear cancer, first of all, at your age, let's start with the very basics.
Yeah.
What was your initial reaction when you had that diagnosis?
It's really hard to process. And then I remember that my first thought was, my hair, what about my hair?
Right. Yes, of course. Yeah. Of course. We want long luscious locks.
Yeah.
Okay. I've abandoned that ship, but yeah, true.
Yeah. But my doctors helped me through it and my family to cope with it, to internalize it and come to terms with it. Yeah, I think it was easier because of the support I got. Yeah.
All right.
So she mentioned that I met her at the point where the histology, the results had
lab
already
results,
come out.
Yeah.
So her initial, so what she went through is what would technically do. You want to first do the lighter tests, decide which other direction you want to go before you do a whole bunch of tests. So the first ultrasound gives you an idea, didn't give enough information. Then you do an MRI that gives you way more information. Where is this mass coming from? Where is it arising from?
Yeah.
Then gives you information for the surgeon also to know, how will I go in? How do I approach this thing? So what she had, and I know she didn't mention, is the mass was arising from the ovary.
Okay.
Which in itself is rare.
Yeah.
At least in children. Okay. In general, it's rare. But now
if we're going to talk about childhood cancers,
yes,
it's not one of the
more common ones. So you figure out where it's coming from, then you go in, remove it, and then you do the test to check, is this, because sometimes you can have masses growing that are not cancerous.
Yeah.
It's big, it's occupying space, and once you remove it, that's it. You're home free.
Yeah.
And then there are the ones that you will need to do more treatment. And that decision is made after you do the surgery. So there's the size of it, there's the how the surgery went, there's the, because also what they do is they'll take the mass out and then they'll take some nodes, some samples of things, tissues around it to see if it has spread beyond the place it was.
Yeah.
And then now you can tailor your treatment towards that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in her case, what was her specific diagnosis?
She had what we call a dysgerminoma.
Okay. Which is a cancer.
Which is a cancer in the ovary.
Yeah.
And it's a particular type that tends to happen in young women and kids. So when the ovary is being deformed, I was going to say made, then I was like, that doesn't sound tricky. Right. So when you're being formed, the early cells, sorry.
I'm pretty sure people know what stem cells at this point.
Yeah, primordial
Yeah.
stem cells. They're
Yeah.
very, very early ones.
Yeah.
There are a few elements that are left within. So sometimes those are retained. They don't go away. And you tend to get now the tumor arising from some of those. So what she had was from the primordial cells. Yeah.
Okay. And then again, a question I'm sure will be asked immediately is, did you say ovarian cancer in a teenager?
Yes.
Did you just say those words?
I said.
Did you falter? Were you wrong with your diagnosis? I thought ovarian cancer happens in older women. In fact, elderly women.
Yes. So the ovarian cancer that we know generally tends to affect much older women who are past menopause.
Yeah.
So in younger women, 30s, 40s, it's considered rare.
Yeah.
So now how much more then
Yeah.
in the pediatric population?
Yeah, true.
So it can happen. It's just that the type of cancer that you get when you're younger is different from the type that you get when you're older. So it's because of the type of cells.
Yeah.
So if you have some of those remnant cells, then you tend to get this germ cell tumors. It's part of what we call germ cell tumors. Tumors arising from the cells that were there when you were
developing in mommy's tummy.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes,
you see, we can simplify medicine.
It doesn't have to be complicated.
Doesn't have to be complicated.
Yes.
Okay. So then, now that already it's rare, but how easy is it to come up with the diagnosis? Because like she said, initially she was told this issue is in the liver. And then later on with further testing and with actual surgeries, especially when a mass is big, you're not able to really tell where it's coming from. Or is this a spread? Because again, it could be that this is metastasis or spread to a different organ. So in something that's already rare, how easy is it to make a diagnosis? And why I'm asking that, it's in the sense of what should people look out for in terms of symptoms?
So the one thing about abdominal tumors is because there's space in there, they can grow without being noticed for a while. Because I'm pretty sure it's that you didn't notice. It must have been coming on. And because there's space in there to move, things are just shifted, moved one side. So by the time it's becoming noticeable, it's probably pretty big. So the first step is usually just noticing. In children, noticing a difference in how you look. So if the belly now is a little bit more round, you're like, there's something. Is it today that you've eaten too much? So watch it for a couple of days. If that expansion, that fullness is not going down, you just put your hand on the belly and do you feel anything? Because a lot of the time you will feel something that doesn't seem...
Something that's either firm or moving in a funny way.
Exactly.
You feel something that's not normal.
Sometimes they will be pain, but a lot of the time they actually are painless. There's just something. If you do feel that, and the thing is, mothers notice. Don't ignore it. If you feel like there's something a little off, you'd rather go in and have it checked. Because the first step will be a clinical examination. Let's test. Then after that, because we don't have X-ray vision, you need to go in
and do the
for your scans.
Yeah.
So we start with ultrasounds because they're the safest in kids. So we don't want to expose to radiation. So we start with an ultrasound. If that doesn't give you information, then you scale up. You go to a CT scan or an MRI. And then once you have that and you have an idea, this thing is coming from the ovary, it's coming from the uterus, it's coming from the liver, then there are certain tests that we do to tell us, should we be running for the hills? Is it something to... So it's sometimes I feel like I'm not giving a full answer, but you can't do all the tests all at once. It's stepwise.
Yeah, of course.
You start with the first thing. If that doesn't give you answers, then you go to the next thing. And because it's rare, you look for the most common things first.
Of course.
Is it an infection? Is it something that we can sort out? If it's not those things, then we go deeper, we go further. So you just keep going stepwise.
Right.
A correct diagnosis is what will save your life, actually. Because once you know what it is, then we can plan how to go about it.
Yeah. And then now specifically, again, as from the approach of gynae, ovarian cancers tend to grow really fast, really rapidly. So you can go from I had no symptoms whatsoever to I'm in so much pain within a very short period of time. So it can be weeks to months, not even a full year. It can actually be 3 months where you're actually noticing, okay, I was fine and now something is going on. And by the time we're finding the diagnosis, like you said, now that's where pain started to come in. And it's very quick because if you're noticing in November and by the time you're coming towards surgery, you're already in pain, it's a very short period of time. Other symptoms some people can experience would be like loss of appetite,
weight loss,
bloating, like you said. For some types of ovarian cancers, you can also now have presentation of puberty prematurely.
Yes.
So if this is happening in someone who's much younger and suddenly the breasts appear,
you're seeing periods.
Periods are here, but you're not yet of the age that we're expecting you. Although nowadays, that being said, puberty is coming earlier
in
general. So again, just to say, it's not necessarily true that the symptoms will be obvious, because a lot of people expect that for me to be told I have cancer, I must be in pain, I must be suffering, I must, like you said, yellow eyes, my hair is falling out, I'm sickly, I am feeling exhausted all the time. Not necessarily true.
And a lot of the times in children, it mimics every other illness in pediatrics.
Exactly,
so if there's fever, I mean, everything comes with fever. If there's vomiting, so you sort of have to, if you've done the first round you've gone and most likely they'll tell you the most common things, and you've had that treated, and you're not seeing improvement, you go back again. You keep persistent, because a lot of the time it is the parent who alerts the health worker that I've been treating this, I've been taking her for 3-4 visits and we are not getting anywhere. Can we do more? The other thing that really helps is so we scale up also with the level of speciality. So if you started and you're not feeling you're getting anywhere, move up and go to a different hospital, go to another specialist, because you need to get the diagnosis done. Because if Dr. Lesan didn't quickly intervene, then you have a different discussion
at the end. That's true.
Yeah.
So for you, Lauren, when you got the diagnosis and now it's going from 0 to 100, suddenly there's this mass. The next thing you have to do is go in for surgery. And then after surgery, you're waiting, thinking everything is fine. And then suddenly you get more information, more complete diagnosis, and chemotherapy becomes another factor. What was your experience? Let's go back in time in terms of surgery. What was your experience, or what were your expectations versus the reality of having such major surgery of your abdomen?
I was actually really nervous right before the surgery, because what if it goes wrong? What will happen? But it ended up going amazing. I was in hospital for just 8 days, and by the end of that, I was walking. I was fine. And in my head, in movies, they make it look so serious.
It's so dire.
Yeah, but it was actually better than I expected. Had an amazing medical team. Yeah, I think it went really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then now chemotherapy. Let's talk about chemotherapy. Because, again, I don't know, cancer is a taboo conversation just in general. And then now when you go into the nitty-gritties and start talking about chemotherapy, like you said, your biggest worry was hair loss.
Yeah.
What was the experience of chemotherapy?
I think the worst cycle was the first one, because the first one, you don't know which side effects you're gonna get. The drugs are being pumped into you. I couldn't eat. I lost appetite kabisa. I feel weak. And then it's a 21-day cycle. So the first 5 days I'm in hospital, we went home, everything was fine. And then one day I'm washing my hand, it's just falling out. Yeah, and then I had to shave my head. And then, the drugs they hurt when they're pumping through the IV lines. So the first cycle was tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by the second one, I'd gotten a chemo pot. It was easier. It was slight.
English. What is like? Hey, again.
It's a
We are the only professors in the room.
okay.
So what is a chemo pot?
It's a device they put over here. It's a pipe that goes into a main vein in your neck.
Yeah.
To help the drugs get to your heart faster, and it's less painful because it's a big vein. Yeah, so it was easier. My body had gotten used to the side effects. It was easier to cope with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd figured out what I need to, like, I craved pineapples, citrusy stuff,
Okay.
pineapples,
Yeah.
oranges.
Yeah.
They're the only thing I could eat.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the other cycles are way easier, but it was still tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it goes by fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you feel helped you the most getting through chemotherapy?
I think being positive, and then my art helped a lot.
Okay.
I painted a lot during that time. I couldn't play guitar though because it affects your fingers. They become so sensitive, so I couldn't even hold the strings. So I was sticking to art and reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You must share a few photos because
Okay.
as we speak at this section, the magic of editing, some artwork will show over here. Yeah, but
Yeah.
so you found strength through art.
Yes.
Okay. What about support, your support system? Did you find, because again, like we've said, this is something where quite literally nobody is expecting that you're going to come home and say, I've been told I have cancer.
Yeah.
So then did you find, or what helped in terms of support with family and friends? Just being able to explain, is it something that they were able to understand? Did they, because again, we are very well-meaning for the most part.
Yeah.
So then I'm going to want to help, but then I don't know how to help. So then what would you say worked the most for you in terms of support from family, from friends?
I think it was just reassuring you that everything is going to be fine, that they're there, letting you talk to them. And my family and friends were very supportive. Even the school, my school, when they heard about that, they came to visit in the hospital. Yeah, it was easier knowing that there were people there who support me and were there for me. Yeah.
Okay. And then now the tougher part, the emotional side of things. How did that play out for you?
It was tough in the beginning and somewhat near the end because I'm tired. I feel like my body is shutting down.
Yeah.
But when you talk to people and let them support you emotionally, it makes you realize you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And channeling out your emotions is important because if you bottle them up, at some point it's going to explode.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so I think it's important also to talk to people, let them know how you're feeling, and be open because you can't handle all that
All of
on
it
your
by
own.
yourself. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And also, nobody expects you to, because again,
Yeah.
you think that no, I have to be strong for everyone
Yeah.
else. No, that's genuinely the hardest, the wrong approach because it makes it harder for you. Because on top of treatment, I'm also trying to support everyone
Yeah.
to make it easier for them. I'm like, no. Focus should be you at that time. So Dr. Rose, I'll bring us now back to the management aspect. The loophole that is when you have a cancer diagnosis in a teenager,
Yeah.
who looks after them? Is it me, Ama? Is it you?
It's supposed to be teamwork. It's supposed to be teamwork.
In this space, is it the gynecologist? Is it the pediatric oncologist? Is it a pediatric surgeon? Is it a combination? Like, what's the ideal approach versus what we have going on currently?
The ideal approach is it's a team of all those people you have mentioned.
Yeah.
So you need the surgeon because you need the tumor out. You need an oncologist, a pediatric one, because it's in the age group of pediatrics.
Yeah.
You need the obstetrician gynecologist because it's in that area.
That realm of reproductive health.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then depending on what more, because there are some tumors, so there's chemotherapy, there's surgery, there's radiotherapy. So depending on where you are, you might also need to bring in the radiation oncologist on board. So it really does depend on the type and the staging.
Yeah.
Because that determines then who to bring on board. But ideally it should be
a team approach.
You're not supposed to be making those decisions, because what I will see is different from your approach. And so you need to bring those strengths together to optimize care the most. Now the difficult part in this country is
amongst
and I'm going to talk about it as in the national national perspective. If you are to go to a public facility, the pediatrics is sort of up to 12, 13. Beyond that, they're put in the adult wards. But they're not adults.
They're not adults. And neither should they be managed like
and they
adults.
shouldn't. Yes. Yeah. So the way children handle chemotherapy is different from adults. They tolerate it a lot better. So our pediatric protocols tend to be a lot heavier than the adult protocols.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because kids are resilient.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So you can be as aggressive as
you
you
can
need to
be aggressive, and the more aggressive your protocol is, the higher the chances of a cure.
Right. Okay.
So pediatric protocols tend to be heavier. They tend to be more aggressive, but then we get much better outcomes because of that aggression. So if you're in the pediatric population but you're on an adult-like protocol, then that means you're not hitting it as hard. That means your chances are not as
good as if you were.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's where the mismatch is. You want them in a pediatric, and also you don't also want them in the ward with the 2-year-olds.
Exactly.
Because Lauren would not appreciate seeing a 5-year-old.
And
like the issues are a little different.
Very different.
So you also don't sort of want them in the same pediatric space as a little baby, but also they're not adults. So that's a gap. That's a gap that we're trying to
have wards for our teens, basically.
We should. Or at least, even if it's in the adult ward, have a section that is for teens, or if it's in the pediatric ward, have a section for the teenagers.
Right.
That would be the ideal. But we work with what we've got.
That's true. In terms of financing and support when it comes to management of childhood cancers, where are we at? Lucky doctors. Being a doctor in this country is hard. You try and keep a straight face, and then you ask a question and you're like,
sorry,
but don't we all know the answer to this question? Anyway. So financially, because I can't avoid saying government.
No, we have to, because without the government's input, there are a lot of people who will not get help. So let me say there's a lot of conversations currently ongoing to improve access to care. NHIF has done quite a bit. We get a lot of support from NHIF towards pediatric cancers.
Okay.
In the public facilities that support cancer care in children, there's a lot of support in that direction. And there's conversations about how to expand it to. So they cover chemotherapy, they'll cover radiotherapy, they'll cover some surgeries, but there's almost always limits. So it's tough. It's tough on everyone. And you see, in an adult, you can mobilize your own resources to move forward. But in a child, you're asking for resources.
From who?
Yes.
That's the question. Because again, a lot of the times financial situation in the family may not be able to support the full care.
Yes.
And even if they were, to reach out to community, how are we explaining?
Yes. And
She's
a
how
lot of
old
the
again?
time
What's going on again?
you also need a caretaker.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's still a child.
Yes.
So you're asking an adult who perhaps would have been out there working to come in also
and be there.
and because as much as we want to support, you can't have a 2-year-old
True.
or a 3-year-old in the ward
In the ward by
without
themselves,
without a parent.
Yeah.
It becomes, and also for the child's own well-being. So there are a lot of ongoing conversations. I think that's the easiest way to say.
You're so politically correct, but I love it. Yeah, because I do know we struggle in adult cancer treatment.
Yes.
So, and that is something that we're speaking more and more about.
Yeah.
So there's more awareness in terms of like, when Breast Cancer Awareness Month is, know about cervical cancer. We're talking so much more openly, prostate cancer. There's lots more conversations around adulthood cancers, but not so much
Not
when
so
it
much,
comes to...
and that's what we're trying to now change the narrative.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have this perception of children don't get cancer, or if they do, then it's a lost cause.
Yeah.
And to be
Actually,
honest,
that's true. A lot of the time, the belief is that if a child is diagnosed with cancer, that's that.
And that's not true. Like for majority of them, the chances of cure are so good. For some particular types, it's up to 95%.
Right.
If you just catch it on time and then follow the treatment protocols, a lot of the time you will have very good outcomes when they grow and they become, productive adults in society. So we need to change the narrative. We need to catch it earlier. We need to now put the resources together. And then now we can... These guys were amazing. Their family support, amazing.
Fantastic. Okay.
Amazing. And then she was stellar. She was... She was such a trooper.
Okay.
Everyone, I think all the nurses, everyone knew Laureen is around today.
Nice. Okay.
She was... but the thing is...
I can see it. You'd come in and smile at me like that. I'd be like, damn it.
It is stressful on everyone.
Yeah. Even the healthcare providers.
The healthcare providers, the parents, the child, the whole thing is. But the world in there, everyone is so positive. Everyone has that outlook. I think that also goes a long way in changing things.
Outcomes,
because you have the positive mindset and then you're getting a baby and you're powering through. It's not easy.
Right.
Chemotherapy is not pleasant.
Yeah.
It's not. Yes.
For anyone.
For
let
anyone.
Alone someone who doesn't even fully understand what's happening within the body.
Exactly.
Because again, especially now if we went younger, the children who can't then verbalize and say, I'm feeling XYZ. I want to throw up. I can't eat. Or you develop side effects like sores and the likes in the mouth.
Exactly.
It becomes such a challenge, even for the caregiver who's there, to maintain positivity and a high energy,
But the beautiful thing about kids, they mean it. They're a little better. Oh, you see it. They smile and they're happy and they're just spreading sunshine everywhere. You can't even be mad at them. You're like, okay. They show it. They don't hide. They're not pretending. When they're good, they're good. When they're not, they let you know. In no uncertain terms.
Exactly. Okay. So then you finished chemo in May this year.
Yeah.
All right. So where are we at now in terms of your journey?
I'm pretty okay now. My hair started growing back.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I feel amazing now. I had the pot removed, I think a month ago.
Okay. So you're done with treatment?
Yeah.
Okay.
So from now on, it's just the regular checkups and that's it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
A heavy duty milestone.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Congrats. Okay. How are you feeling since completing treatment? Because again, there's emotions before, there's during, and now there's after.
Yeah. I'm pretty happy and relieved. I can say chemo helped me boost my confidence because it takes a lot to rock a bald head.
There's that.
Yeah.
There is that.
Yeah.
You know, there's bald head by choice.
Yeah.
And
I
then
was going to say,
there's-
especially when you're younger.
Yes.
Because I remember how attached we used to be
Yes.
to our hair
Yeah.
at your age. If you told me something about cutting hair at that time,
Yeah.
you just power through that hot comb.
Yeah.
Hot comb. It's like, okay, straighten. Right, okay. So how do you feel that changed your outlook in terms of now that you had to rock your bald head with pride?
Yeah. I realized because I even had the option of buying a wig, but then it got to a point I was like, "What? I don't need one. I feel fine the way I am. I feel beautiful, and
Yeah.
it's okay."
There are a lot of adult women in the audience
Okay.
who I hope are listening. You are not your hair.
Yeah. You are.
Because again, we are stuck on a lot of, unfortunately, like self-esteem issues that go around just physical appearance. And once you have that as a challenge, it's difficult to dissociate. But when you've lived through literally a life and death
situation. Yeah.
you start to realize what is a priority and what is not. Do you feel, because then the reality of the situation, there are moments where I'm sure it dawns on you what you've just lived through, what you've had to go through, the fact that others your age haven't had to go through the challenges you have. Do you feel in any way any negativity has ever crept in along the journey?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it just helped me get a different outlook on life. Like anything can happen at any time.
Yeah.
Because last year in November, my headspace was I need to get my assignments done for school next year.
Yeah.
And the year went totally different from what I expected.
Right.
So I guess it's helped me learn to expect anything from life.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good lesson. I can tell you that as adults. That's a very good lesson.
We are learning those lessons. How old now?
I know.
Yeah.
It becomes such a tricky situation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, for where you are now, what are you hoping for? What are your big aspirations and big dreams? First of all, are you able to play the guitar again?
Yes.
Okay,
I can play it now.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
But where do you feel like your big picture vision for you is?
Like in career-wise or
Life. Big picture. Big
Okay.
wildest dreams.
Okay, I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer.
Okay.
But this year, I'm leaning
I was
towards the
waiting for
medical
neurosurgeon.
side.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you.
We're here looking at you
we're
like this.
alas, we've literally surrounded you, and medicine is not there.
Yeah, I've started leaning towards the medical side.
Okay.
Yeah. I think from now I'll just take life as it comes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
A step at a time. Finish high school, go to college, and see what comes. I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Daktari, support systems, because you've seen her journey from the beginning to where we are now. It's a success story, but I'm sure you also have seen different families going through this journey. Some where support, even understanding the condition well enough to be able to say I can provide support. How important do you think it is within the family, the community, the friends around our young patient, especially?
I mean, I don't know how you can go through something like this without support. So fine, there are some places where you will not get as much family support as you'd like, but you must have some level of support. Remember, they're still children.
Yeah.
Someone must bring them to the hospital. Someone must cater to the needs. It's not in their hands.
Yeah.
So now we have to advocate for that. So there are some spaces that if the parents are not able to fully support, then that's where the hospitals come in. It's you, and then other organizations also come in and say, this is the level of support we can give. There are a lot of NGOs out there who if approached or if they are aware that there is this need, then they can come in and give some support.
Yeah.
So the ideal would be the family rallying. But we all know the realities
Yeah.
of life. Sometimes that's just not possible.
Yeah.
So in those spaces, then you let your caregivers know. Because if we don't know that that's the struggle, because you see, if I ask a patient, please come in on this date, and you say and then you don't come in and you don't explain, I don't know how to help you to plug in to get support. So there are organizations out there, there are patient-led organizations, people who have gone through this before, who will come in and give support. There are NGOs out there who are offering some form of support. The hospitals themselves, there's the teams, there's a palliative care team, there's a pastoral teams, there's the counseling and psychology department, there's the pediatricians. So all of us work together to give as much support as, because even if I do my best to give the drugs, without all these other things, and support also means things like nutrition. So if there's no healthy food to take, how will you be healthy enough to even cope with the medication? So you bring all this. I think that's what we do in PIDS. You bring all these different people together. You try and gather up as much as support as you can. And then what Lauren is doing, she's raising awareness.
In fact, that's my final bit when we come back to
yes.
as to
so
why.
Just also knowing someone else. Also just having another parent tell you, hang in there, there's light. If goes such a long way.
In fact, you've segued straight back to me coming back to Lauren. Why do you feel it's important to share your story? Because again, we live in a society where, like I said, these things are still, first of all, not even understood or known. Then secondly, the few that are, there's a lot of stigma still, because again, culturally, is it witchcraft? Were you a bad person? Did somebody look at you with an evil eye? I mean, this is our realities, right? So why did you feel that it's necessary to share your story as opposed to recovering, continuing in private, just living your best life and looking forward to the future?
I think people need to understand and know that these things happen. They can happen to anyone. Most people are like, oh, this can't happen to someone in my family. Our family doesn't have that kind of history. But it's not about that. It can happen to anyone, and it's important to give them the support they need and just be there for them.
Right. Okay. Is there such a thing as negative support? Is there such a thing as somebody, because again, we all mean well, but then the way I'm attempting to support you ends up being more of a hindrance or like negative? Have you had any experience like that?
I can't say.
Okay, good. This is so amazing because we hear stories. We do.
But I think she didn't get any of that because her family really protected her, really surrounded and covered. We've seen stories on social media where now they use images and pictures and then use that to raise funds, and then the funds are misused or go
disappear entirely.
So that's negative. It's bringing awareness, but then it's being done not to help the individual. So even as I say, get support, get what, you have to also vet these people. You have to vet the NGOs. You have the people who are claiming to help. You have to also vet them, because then you don't want it to, because what that does is it makes people think everything's a con job.
True.
And we don't want that. We want it channeled in the right directions.
I agree with that. As well as just ask what help is needed. Because again, it's a child, it's somebody who's younger than, you'll find people who think they're supportive, but they're bullying you into doing something the way they would have done it. I've had patients where they're being told, no, forget about medication, you should be on herbal treatment, you should, in our community, these plants are the ones that have saved our lives over the years. or we need a cleansing ritual because, like I said, evil eye and such things. So we kind of also have to be a bit careful, like you've said, vet the people. I think in the family dynamic, the parents, if they are able to stand in the place for the child and decide who can have access and who should be limited. In the school as well, because again, there are bullies regardless of what you're going through. So especially now with a health issue, somebody coming at you about that can be devastating. So it's more of vet and manage as much as possible. I am so happy your experience has been vastly positive and that the family was able to rally and help you through. I'm sure you're the most delicate egg now. And everything you do moving forward, they'll be like, yeah, support. But that's actually, what I'd want to say to the audience is just, if you wanted to know whether your support matters, here's the evidence. It really does. However little the support is, it doesn't necessarily always have to be financial, because some people are just not able to. But sending a note of support, buying her art, nilisema, plug, here, buying, plugging into your talents, supporting whoever it is that is around you. You might not be able to support Lauren specifically. We are talking about the ones within your community. You can reach out and find out, what exactly do you need? Do you guys need us to help with caregiving? Do you need us to care for the caregiver?
Do you need to donate blood?
Exactly. There's also that, because blood nowadays, in fact, after COVID, we've really been struggling with getting blood donations going. Daktari, where we are versus where you hope for us to get to. What in your mind would be the ideal pediatric oncology setup in Kenya in terms of, we're looking after children with cancers or young adults with cancers. I need everything aligned for me to be able to work towards the best possible outcomes. What does that future look like?
Oh, say, you're asking me to dream big.
I'm asking, it's your turn. Dream big.
Okay. You never know. Someone might be listening. So I think it's what I've been saying before. It needs to be holistic. You can have the doctors, you don't have the drugs. You can have the doctors, the drugs, the nurses, you don't have social support. You can have those, you don't have nutrition. And then we're talking about children. Play therapy helps, goes such a long way to help them cope with what's going on, help them release emotion, let them feel like life is continuing. And in an ideal world, you have a facility that can diagnose on time. So you have your labs set up, you have your MRIs, your radiotherapy, you have theaters, you have the specialists for those areas, because if you don't know what you're dealing with, then
true.
So you have your specialists, and then that's the middle part, and then you have all the support around it. You have the nutrition, you have the play therapy, you have a means of people. Sometimes the barrier here is getting to the hospital and back. We have the NCI accredited centers to treat childhood cancer in the public space. There are 3, and they're all in Nairobi. You're in Kenyatta, you're in KU, and then there's Eldoret, right? So if you come from Wajir,
how are you getting here?
How are you getting access to that? So we need to streamline some of those pathways, because once you sort some of those things out, then our numbers improve. The outcomes are better. And then now the narrative changes, because the concept, the thought now is, it doesn't get better, but we know that it can. If you look at the statistics for the US, the UK, they're not like ours, for sure. And it's not a Kenyan problem, it's a African problem. It's the Latin Americas, there's other European countries that you don't think would be struggling, but they're still struggling. But if you look at the first world countries, there's some things that, because those systems have been put in place, the outcomes are
Much
are
better.
much better.
Yeah.
So a center that would cater for all of that, and then you'd have one in Nairobi, and then one in Mombasa, and then one in Kisumu. Like make them accessible to the people, because it's not fair. If Lauren wasn't in Nairobi, if you live in
That's true.
Bungoma,
Yeah.
and then you have to be here every 21 days. You come in, you get your medication, you go home. We're still checking on you. What are the logistics around that?
True.
Yeah. So we need to start having those conversations so that we can then task our government. Yeah, because
Yep.
so that because some of these things are so big, it doesn't
truly
make sense to
some
have.
things we're not going to achieve individually.
We can't.
actually have to work together.
It has to be an initiative that is led by the government. And so that when they say we're building facilities, have they had that conversation about pediatric oncology?
Which facilities are we building?
Which facilities are we building? Because you can build a building, but if you've not taken care of the other logistics, then the building becomes a white elephant.
True.
It doesn't help anyone.
Yeah. True. Lauren, final thoughts. This is where I'd want you to speak to the person in the audience listening in who has literally just started this journey. Either they've noticed something is wrong and they're starting the process of looking for help, or they've just received their diagnosis and now they're afraid of what is coming next. What would you say in terms of encouraging such a person?
I'd say just keep your eye on the light at the end of the tunnel, because it's going to get tough. It's hard, but you have to have hope for the end, that you're going to be fine. And one day you're going to look back at it and realize it made you stronger. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautifully said. I love that, because again, like you said, as part of support, seeing someone who's walked or lived through this journey, someone who has truly experienced everything that could be experienced, but is here with us and is bravely sharing her story and has had fantastic outcomes through the whole process. I think that's the encouragement that we need to hear. It's not always we're going to tell dire stories all the time. And like you said, outcomes for children and younger adults tend to be fantastic by comparison, if the diagnosis is made in time and if we're able to go for it with everything that we have. So I think that's an important take-home message. Daktari, speak to the parents, to the families, to the community around our children who have learned a little bit something small about the possibility that, yes, cancer can be diagnosed at such an early age.
One is that there's always hope. That's the whole premise of what we do. So even when you get a diagnosis like this one, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. There is hope. It's a tough journey. It will drain you emotionally, physically, mentally, financially. But the underlying thing for all of us is there's hope. There's always hope. So keep your healthcare, your doctors, your nurses, keep them in the loop. The struggles that you're going through, keep them in the loop, so that even as you're going through them, if I find a solution, if I come across something, then we have a conversation.
Because now I know that that's an issue for you, I can actually find resources for you.
And I don't think you will find a pediatric oncologist who's not trying to help you. The goal is let's get you healthy as quickly as possible. So keep us in the loop. Talk to other parents. Talk to support groups. And then do your part. Encouraging the child, being present, understanding that sometimes just being in that space is tough. So you give a little bit of leeway. And then trying to keep life as normal as possible. So activities for the child. And so, of course, we touch base on when can you go back to school? When is it healthy? But keeping everything else as constant as possible
Right.
for the child also goes quite a long way.
Yeah.
Donate blood, please.
Please.
Everyone. It's
Please.
a plea. It's a plea. Yeah.
Please.
I can't do my job
without
blood product support, because the medications we give really knock out your body's ability to make your own blood. So when they say donate blood, save, like literally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe what we should encourage is more of a culture of regular donation rather than waiting for a specific appeal.
Exactly.
If you're a healthy adult, how often can we donate blood?
If you're a healthy young man, you can give blood
3-4 months.
every 3 months.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, not young. Young is relative.
It's relative.
If you're a man,
please, all of
and
us
you
are
qualify,
hapa ni mayouth, okay.
Please donate blood every 4 months.
Yeah.
Become a regular donator. It goes such a long way. Women can give every 4 months. Yeah. So 3 times a year to 4 times a year. You're really saving.
I would love to see that become a Kenyan culture.
So that then we're not banking on, because you remember some of the patients we have don't have the relatives to be brave. So if you can support, and that can be your contribution. You see, people think your contribution needs to be monetary. No, that is a contribution.
That goes such a long way.
1 pint of blood can save 4 people.
Wow.
Yes, because we split it into what the components parts that we need. So 1 pint can actually save 4 people. You can save 4 children. Look at me looking with big eyes.
Stare deep into their eyes and convince them.
You can support by, the facilities that treat children, books, toys. Volunteer your time. Is
come and play with the
babies. If you have talents, you're a musician, you're in the arts, you can that day that you liven that child's life up, you don't know, that maybe that was a turning point for them, and then they get the will to fight and continue on. So there are so many places you can help that don't mean money, but also the money helps. The money helps.
We're not trying to say the money doesn't help.
Exactly. But there are a lot of groups out there that are doing a lot of support. And if you ask, there is always going to be a way to plug in and support and help. We do that. Give people hope. We're in the business of hope.
I love that. Okay. For you now, wewe, because nitaulizwa. If they need you, where can we find you?
So I am based in KU Teaching Referral Hospital, but I am also available in various private facilities.
Okay. So as always, all the information shall be linked in the description box below for you who maybe want another opinion, or you found Daktari is the one who smiles the most and you prefer her. We shall direct you in the right direction. But just to close off, I want to say thank you so much, Laureen. I think it takes a level of bravery that is inspiring to even be comfortable enough to share your story, to first of all even come on a platform like this one. Most people see cameras and they're like, but just everything that you've gone through, I like to believe that the lessons learned might not be clear now, but they will come along the way, and I'll keep holding you to account. Show me the art. I promise. But thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your story, because I think it'll touch a life, it'll go a long way. For you, Daktari, thank you for making the time to join me. Tumesema tutawa link towards you just in case there's someone who wants to reach out. But more importantly, to the audience, thank you so much for staying with us up until this point. I hope you've learned something. It's only beginning to scratch the surface. I look for Laureen in another few years' time to continue her story and tell us where she's at in her journey. And for those who, like we've said, are starting this journey as well, are going through this, having a tough diagnosis as a child or a young adult, there is a lot of hope and there is a lot of support. until next time, we'll see you then.